Hey guys, Daniel from Team Kuribrohs here, and I am joined with the winner of this week's Irish Remote Duel Locals. It's a pretty interesting deck, so would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Jakob, and this week I played Dragonmaid, which is a deck I've been building and optimizing for a long time, and I think I've got it to a spot where I'm pretty happy with it.
Was there any particular reason that you chose Dragonmaid for this event, or like what kind of has you interested in the deck? Because it's
I just generally didn't feel like the format is all that interesting right now. If you're looking at like the top tier deck, I've never been much of a combo player myself, so I've always looked for like this mid-rangey, grindy control deck to play. And Dragonmaids has the advantage that a lot of players just discount the deck, kind of, because of like the art style and the reputation of like being like a waifu deck. But it actually is really potent in a grind game. And once you actually get into the game, and if the opponent especially doesn't know how to play against the deck, it generates a ton of advantage.
would you like to quickly go through the ratios, and then we can kind of
Yes.
discuss combos?
Alright, so let's go through the main deck. Bonus Field Center. Alright, so we have the normal summons. 3 Black Metal Dragon. 3 Parlor Dragonmaid. And 3 Chamber Dragonmaid. So, Parlor Dragonmaid, when it's summoned, it sends a Dragonmaid card from your deck to graveyard. Chamber Dragonmaid, when it's summoned, it adds a Dragonmaid spell or trap card. And Black Metal Dragon, when it's sent from field to graveyard, it adds a Red Eyes monster. So it can add Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon. These 3 are your 1-card starters, because they, on their own, make the best card in the deck, which is Heretic Seal of Heavenly Spheres, Link 2. Then we have the extra Dragonmaids. 3 Kitchen. And 2 Nurse. So these are the ratios that you would cut if you wanted to make the deck slimmer and play less normal summons, because they don't combo, they don't make Heretic Seal on their own. Nurse is a monster reborn, so it targets a level 4 lower Dragonmaid in graveyard, revives it. Kitchen searches a Dragonmaid monster, but then you also have to send a Dragonmaid monster. So in most situations, Kitchen tends to just be a foolish with extra steps. Then the big dragons. You need level 5 or higher dragons to summon Xiao, the big fusion. So you need to play some of these, but you want to play as few as possible because they tend to break. So there's Tinkek, that's the level 8. There's Ernest, that's the level 7. And then obviously there's Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon. That's it for big dragons. So Tinkek is, so the way Dragonmaids work is that they're paired in levels. So you have the level 3 Dragonmaids, Parlor and Kitchen, and you have the level 2 Dragonmaid Nurse. The level 3 Dragonmaids can tag out at the start of the battle phase into the level 8 Dragonmaid, so Tinkek, or the big green one, which I don't play. And Nurse can tag out into Ernest, or the level 7 other Dragonmaid, I also don't play. So you want to play at least one of each. You can play 3, so you can also play Lorpar, which is a big green one. But I'm really worried about breaking in this deck. So that's why I only play as few of the big dragons as possible, and one of each ensures that all your Dragonmaids can plus at the start step. Ernest especially is useful because it lets you play in hands that have too many Dragonmaids. Because Ernest's effect in the hand is you can discard it, and then special summon a level 4 or lower Dragonmaid from your hand. So that also allows Kitchen to play for you. Because if you have a hand that has too many Dragonmaids, like Kitchen plus 2 others, you can actually normal summon the Kitchen, and then replace one of the other Dragonmaids with Ernest, and then Ernest summons the second Dragonmaid. So Kitchen, in a way, makes your too many Dragonmaid hands bearable, that otherwise would just be bricks. And then Tinkek or Lorpar is mostly just a choice of preference. Tinkek, you can discard it to boost the Dragonmaid by 2000, which helps you just make random lethals, and also lets you out Winda, which is really nice. Lorpar is an ignition effect that just says during your main phase you can discard it, target a monster your opponent controls, and then it cannot activate its effects that turn. So it's kind of like it forces negates, but it's not very good in practice. So I chose Tinkek because it adds window, and there's a lot of shit all running around the format. And then obviously Red is Archer Stealth Dragon doesn't really it's a level 8 that, or level 9 that, this is 9. It's a level 10 that, you can't make BFD this. It's a level 10 that also summons back something. It's just free advantage. So that's the monsters, the dragons. Then you have the best extender in the deck, which is World Legacy Guard Dragon. So this card, you probably remember it from Dragon Link decks. When it's activated, you can reborn a level 4 lower dragon monster. And then once per turn, it can target a dragon monster you control and move it. And this card is part of the quote-unquote main combo of the deck, which you need to do if you're playing against like high-powered combo decks like Drytron or Virtual World, where just ending on Heretic Seal isn't going to cut it, because they're just going to play through it. So you can use World Legacy Guard Dragon to just extend into a full combo and end the fusion. I'm going to show that at the end. Okay, then we have the Dragonmaid spell traps. We have 3 Hospitality. So Dragonmaid Hospitality is special summon as Dragonmaid from hand or graveyard in defense position. And then after that, you can also send a Dragonmaid of the same attribute but a different level from your deck to the graveyard. So that means if you're summoning Nurse, you can send Ernest, and if you're summoning Kitchen, you can send Tinkek. One point of note, this is actually worse than Guard Dragon. While it doesn't target, which can be nice, so if they crow your Dragonmaid in graveyard, you can summon from hand. This is ashable, because of the additional effect that it can send a Dragonmaid of the same attribute. So the opponent can always ash this, and if the opponent knows this, and this is actually a lot worse than Guard Dragon. Also, you can cut this. Again, if you want to like play the engine, a slimmer engine, you could cut this to 2. I probably wouldn't go below 2 because you need it in grind games to search. You could also cut Nurse to 1, and you could cut Kitchen to 1 or 2. So these are the ones you would cut if you wanted to reduce the monster count. And then there's the one-off fusion spell, Dragonmaid Changeover. This is Meteonis Drytron except for fusion. So it's just regular poly in that it fusion summons a dragon monster using hand or field. But if it's in the graveyard, you can target a Dragonmaid you control. It returns itself to your hand, so it just recycles itself every turn. And then it returns the Dragonmaid to hand. So this just comes back every turn, so you only need 1. It's a brick in the hand, and if it gets DD crowed, you feel sad. It's better than bricking on it. And then finally, the Dragonmaid Trap, Dragonmaid Tiding. This is one of the best additions to the deck ever since it was released. So on field, it doesn't seem that strong, but it's actually pretty potent. It targets a dragon you control, and then a card either your opponent controls or in their graveyard. It returns them to hand. So it can both recycle your Dragonmaids, or let your Dragonmaids dodge Dogmatica Punishment or Imperm. And also it returns the opponent's card to hand as a trap card. So this is really strong against Eldritch decks, against Mystic Mine. And also it's a trap card, so even if you get Dark Rulered, this is still Disruption. And then also, if that wasn't strong enough, in the graveyard, you can banish it and special summon a Dragonmaid from hand or grave in defense position, and it gets returned to the hand in the end. So it's also kind of like Trickster Reincarnation in the graveyard. So it's also an extender you can send off of Parlor. It's really nice. This especially is a really cute card you can do a lot of things with. Maybe briefly mention that at the end. So, and then we have generic cards that are good. We have 3 Ash Blossom, 3 DD Crow. These are obviously flex spots, so these are adjusted to format. Crow is really good against Eldritch decks, and Drytron, less good against Virtual World, so adjust this based on what you're playing against. 3 Solemn Strike, because purple cards are nice, and this just has a huge impact in pretty much every matchup. 3 Ice Dragon's Prison. Just completely screws over Eldritch, really hurts Virtual World. It's a bit more awkward against Drytron, so if you're seeing a lot of Drytron, maybe cut this. But against Virtual World and Eldritch. And also every invoked variant. And then you have the one-off call by the Grave as a 40. Just because screw hand traps. And also it's just really good generic disruption. Like you can just set this and negate. It's really good. Okay, so that's the main deck, 40 cards. As mentioned, if you want to slim it down, cut this, cut this, cut this. One word of note before we go to the extra deck. Dragonmaids all have this unique mechanic. The small ones, say in the start of the battle phase, in the start step of the battle phase, they can activate their effect on field, return themselves to hand, and then summon an appropriate big Dragonmaid from grave. So Parlor and Kitchen can summon Tinkek, Nurse can summon Ernest, and Chamber can summon anything big, so 7 or higher. This is something you really play around in the start step specifically. So there's a lot of the plays of this deck involve playing in the opponent's start step. So when they try to go to battle phase because they don't know what the deck does, you actually summon monsters in the start step, for example, using Tidying or using Heretic Seals effect, which we're going to show in a second. And then that monster you summon gets its effect because you summoned it. And then also the monster you summon gets to tag out and gain extra advantage by summoning a big dragon from graveyard. So for example, if their opponent just tries to attack you directly, you can go, for example, Tidying, revive a Nurse. The Nurse triggers, revives a Chamber. The Chamber adds a spell or trap because it was summoned. And then both the Nurse and the Chamber can return to hand and summon 2 big dragons that your opponent can't actually punch over. And suddenly they've wasted their battle phase and you've gone +4. So that's what I say when I mean when I say it's really strong if the opponent doesn't know what they're playing against or how the deck works, because you can really abuse them just seeing battle phase. Okay, so that's the main deck. Moving on to the extra deck. That's monsters, that's spells, that's hand traps. Moving on to the extra deck. The best card in the deck is not the fusion, but the best card in Dragonmaids is Heretic Seal of Heavenly Spheres. You have all seen this card. Link to 2 dragon monsters, any 2 dragon monsters. And during the opponent's turn, if it's in the extra monster zone, it can tribute any monster in your hand or field. It doesn't have to tribute itself. Tribute any monster in your hand or field to return a face-up card, non-targeting on the field to the hand. So this is just non-targeting interruption. It's any face-up card. So it can, for example, deny Cursed Eldland, it can deny Magical Meltdown, or it can just return Mechabuzz or return VFDs to the hand. Also, if it's tributed, which is the second really powerful effect, if it itself is tributed, it can special summon any dragon from the deck that has 0 attack or defense. So and that gets its attack set to 0. So any dragon from your deck and its attack and defense go to 0. So the upside of this is that it just triggers if it's tributed. So even if you get Nibiru'd while you're sitting on this, right, it still triggers because it was tributed by Nibiru. You just summon a Nurse Dragonmaid from deck, revive something, and just make another Heretic Seal, and the Nibiru actually does nothing because you still end on this. Yeah, it's best card in your deck. So it's an interruption because it tributes itself or anything else, usually itself, to bounce a card. And then also when it's tributed, it summons a Dragonmaid, and then the Dragonmaid goes plus because it got summoned. The attack and defense to 0 don't really matter because any of the Dragonmaids can just tag out in the start step if they try to run over it. And also another card that really benefits if the opponent doesn't know how to play against the deck, because people usually know this card from Pendulum or Dragon Link decks, and there usually the way to force it is to say battle phase and try to punch over it. But if you try to do it against a Dragonmaid deck, it's just going to tribute the seal in start step, bounce the monster you summoned, and then it's going to summon a Dragonmaid. The Dragonmaid is going to plus, and then the Dragonmaid is also going to bounce to hand and plus again by reborning from. So saying battle phase against this is really dangerous if your opponent's playing Dragonmaid. Alright, then the actual archetypal cards. 3-house Dragonmaid. This is a small fusion. It says a Dragonmaid and any dragon. You very rarely fusion summon this. And if any other Dragonmaid is returned to the hand, or when any other Dragonmaid is returned to the hand, you can target a monster your opponent controls, destroy it. It's decent at ending games. Like if your opponent is just sitting on 2 big Eldritches but no interaction, this can just get rid of them because it's not once per turn. So if you have like 3 Dragonmaids that are like 3 small Dragonmaids at field that can return, then House is going to pop a monster every time. So you can just clear the field once you've gotten rid of interruption. But usually it's just ammo for Dragonmaid Xiao, which is the big fusion. You play 2 of this, or I play 2 of this. This requires a level 5 or higher Dragon Monster plus a Dragonmaid. And its effects, there's 2 of them. The first one is, during the standby phase, you can just special summon a level 9 or lower Dragonmaid from your hand or graveyard. So if during the standby phase, you just plus for free. And then also, if your opponent activates a card or effect, or when your opponent activates a card or effect, you can activate its effect. It negates the activation, destroys that card, and then also after that, so even if it didn't destroy, it returns itself to the extra deck and summons House Dragon. So in a way, the houses, so the 3 house, are just ammo for the 2 Xiaos, while the 2 Xiaos just recycle themselves. You play 2 because you sometimes want to let this die. So it's worth noting that this is a level 10 dragon. So Chamber Dragonmaid just says tag into any level 7 or higher dragon. So this can tag into both Xiao and House. Though it's worth noting that Xiao obviously just special summons House. So if the House was summoned off of Xiao, then you can't reborn it to Chamber. But Xiao, if you just let it get Kaiju'd or let it get Dark Rulered, or let it get removed, like Eldritch is trying to send it, just let them send it, and then you can just reborn it in the battle phase with Chamber. And that's why you play 2, so in case one goes in the graveyard, you can still. Then we have the combo pieces. Almirage, LP, Pisty, and Crossroads Dragon. Almirage is a link 1 that points down, you know it. LP, Pisty, okay, everybody knows what these cards do. Crossroads Dragon is the only link 2 dragon in the game that has generic materials and points down. It has an effect, like it says something about rose dragon monsters and plant monsters, and nobody cares. This says 2 monsters of different types, and it points down and it's a dragon. And then, yeah, generic cards. Borlo Dragon. I would usually play Boral Sword Dragon in this slot, but I couldn't find my Boral Sword Dragon. It's also kind of cute because it can steal Dragoon. Nightmare Phoenix, Nightmare Unicorn. Removes cards. It's good. That's the extra deck. Alright. So I'm just going to quickly do the side deck, and then I'm going to quickly show the setup you do with this deck. So we're going to need these in a second. Alright, side deck. So the first 3 cards are Elder Entity Entis, Cyber Dragon Nova, and Barbaroid, the something battle machine. This one's Italian, so I don't know what the name is. So this is the well-known Maximus package. Your opponent tries to Dogmatic Maximus you, send these 2. Entis is going to force the Mechaba to negate, and Nova is going to resolve this. And this is just a 4K body that's Earth, so they can't send it with Schism because it's Earth. While Mechaba is light, so they can always send the Mechaba away if they fuse Construct. And then it's just a 4K that punches twice, so it can attack twice. It can't attack directly, and if it kills anything by battle, it actually negates its effects. So if you're playing against actual Shadow decks, like Shadow Dogmatica versions that actually play Shadow cards, this can actually negate the Shadow Fusion, like the Shadow Fusion monster's effects in the graveyard when you run over it. So they can't add back Shadow Fusion. And if it kills anything, it does 1,000, which is not. So it just punches over their whatever they built if they try to Maximus you. Right, then 3 evenly matched. You don't like playing it to a lot of back row that much. You don't have that many extenders, so just evenly them and then play. 3 Nibiru. There's a lot of combo decks in this format. You can main deck this. Mostly a matter of like what format are you playing in. 3 Kaijus. I played 1 Godarla and 2 Gamma Seals because I don't have any additional Godarlas. You would probably play 3 of this because there's a wind statue in the format. 3 Cycle Reader. I have it because I wanted something that hits Drytron, and Droll only stops them for a turn, while this actually removes 2 Drytrons from the grave, so they lose resources. Or it can actually just also remove the Drytron and the Benton that you distributed. So if a Drytron activates Tributes Benton, you can just chain this, remove the Drytron, remove the Benton, they don't get a search, and they just minus and stop their turn. While Duel only stops them for a turn, and then you have to kill them, which you can't always do if you're handed. I didn't see any dry turn today, so this like the only time I used this was to banish a Lord, which was still good. Like it's just DD Crow that hits Eldritch. Whatever. So yeah, that's the side deck. And I'm just gonna quickly, before we go, I'm gonna show you the setup you can do in this deck. So I'm gonna note that this is something you don't usually do. You don't have to. Mostly because it's kind of greedy. It loses to a lot of things like Nibiru or Ghost Ogre or Ash. And in that regard, it's kind of awkward because if you don't have any extra extenders beyond what we have in hand now, then you're just stuck passing on LP Almirage, which you don't want to do. But sometimes you have to. Like if you're playing against Virtual Lord or something, then just passing on Heretic Seal usually isn't going to cut it, especially if you didn't open like 2 more traps. And then you actually have to like greed and do the full combo and hope they don't have a hand trap. Or if they do, at least they've removed a card from their hand, so hopefully you can survive. Right. So the setup for this is World Legacy God Dragon, which is the best card in the deck as an extender, and any one of these 3 cards. So either Parlor Dragonmaid or Chamber Dragonmaid or Black Metal. Any of these 3 plus World Legacy God Dragon is one setup you can do. There's a second setup you can do if you have any 3 dragon monsters on. So the ability to get any 3 dragon monsters on field, then you don't need this. Which can also come up, especially if you open like strange hands with like Hospitality and Nurse or something like that. Where you have the ability to summon the Nurse from hand and then reborn something you linked off. So we're just going to take Chamber here. The combo is essentially the same no matter which one you start. There's one difference which I'm going to point out when it happens. So you just summon your first Dragonmaid, or your first dragon, and this adds Changeover to hand. Right, so I'm going to remove these cards, and I'm going to just do the field here. So we have, this is the field, and we have Chamber with normal summon the Chamber. The Chamber adds Changeover, because you need the fusion spell to make the fusion, and just gets linked off for Almirage. That's why that card exists. It's a link 1 that points down. If there were a dragon link 1 that pointed down, this would be a lot easier. You wouldn't have to do awkward things, but like this, you have to make Almirage. All the Dragonmaids are 500 attack, so you can all make Almirage. Then you activate the Legacy Guard Dragon, which can bring back the Chamber. Obviously, this is just standard Dragon Link setup. You make LP. This, and then the World Legacy Guard Dragon effect can move the LP. And now the LP effect activates and can summon from deck. So this is the awkward point. Because at this point, you're on a Cyrus and a Dragon, so you can't make Heretic Seal with these 2. So if this LP gets ashed or gets interrupted and you don't have an extender, then you're just left feeling really sad. Assume that doesn't happen to us, so we can summon a Black Metal Dragon. So this is obviously the point where the grids differ. If you opened Black Metal Dragon, then the changeover in your hand is a Red as Darkness Metal Dragon, and you just summon Chamber here and add the changeover. Apart from that, the setup is the same. And then this dragon turns into Pisty. So that's the reason you play Black Metal Dragon. It's effectively a small dragon, so a level 4 or lower dragon for Pisty and LP, that also turns into a big dragon, which is red. That's why you play the package, because it gives you a small dragon that turns into. And it's also a normal summon that turns into Heretic Seal by itself, which is nice. Right, there's my Red as Darkness. There we go. So add that to hand. And this is where the Crossroads Dragon comes in. So this points below the right extra monster zone. And you're on the God Dragon lock, so you can't make anything that's not a dragon, but you need a generic link 2 that points down. And this is not a dragon, so you can't play like any of the Dragon Link 2s. So this is why you play Crossroads, which is just link 2 you can make at this point, and it points down. Now you use Pisty effect to bring back anything. It doesn't really matter. Any dragon. If anything's banished for some reason, like you got to this point and they crowed something when you activate a changeover or something, then you bring back the banish thing because this can summon from banish. Apart from that, just bring back any dragon. These two turn into Heretic Seal. You make the Heretic Seal first because if they Nibiru you at this point, you still get to make Heretic Seal because this triggers are distributed. Banish the Pisty for Darkness. Effect of this brings back a Dragonmaid. This has to be a Dragonmaid, so you can use Changeover. Yep, activate Changeover. Turn these two into Xiao, and you're done. That's the setup. Really not that complicated compared to many other combo rights, but it gets you to Xiao Spheres. This is not hurting bounce, this is a negate. And also in the standby phase, this is going to reborn a Dragonmaid, so usually Chamber or Parlor, whichever you used. And then Chamber is going to search you follow-up for next turn. So Chamber usually searches Hospitality, and if this was a Parlor, because you started Parlor, you would send Tidying, which is also effectively Hospitality, just engrave. And yep, that's the long setup. You usually don't want to greed for this, because like I said, you really loses to Ash. Another setup you can do, just real quick, which is very similar, but loses to Ash less, is if you get 3 dragons on field. So for example, if you have Chamber and Nurse, should be in here. Chamber, Nurse, Hospitality, for example. So this is without Guard Dragon, but it requires you to have an extra extender, because you need to have the ability to get 3 dragons on field throughout the turn. So this. And the way this setup works is, yeah, normal summon the Chamber. It adds, in this case, I guess, Changeover. It could also add Hospitality if you don't have it yet. But at that point, you would need to have another way to get to Changeover, or you would need to have a level 7 or level 8 dragon in hand, so you can then not make the Red and Darkness Metal Dragon. This turns into Almirage, same as before. Should be in here. It's not. I put it back, I think. Yes. It turns into Almirage, same as before. And now you have the moment where you can change Hospitality. And this now summons in hers. At this point, you can also send the Urnus. I'm not going to do it now for time, but you would usually send the Urnus off of Hospitality. And then Nurse brings back the Chamber. And now we have this setup from before, where we have the 3 bodies in field and the 2 dragons. And we can again do the thing where we... Slightly different this time. So we LP here. And now we use the Crossroads Dragon first to make it here. So the advantage of this setup is it doesn't lose to Ash at this point. Obviously, they can Ash your Hospitality, which can be awkward. But most people don't read Hospitality, so they don't realize they can Ash it. So now again, we have LP effect because it points to the same thing. And if this time if it gets ashed, we actually can make Heretic Seal. Play like that. Right, make Black Metal Dragon, which again turns into Pisty, which again adds us the Red Metal Dragon to hand. And now we just make Heretic Seal at this point. Because the Pisty is now in a different zone, so Heretic Seal points to it. And now we can just Pisty to bring back a Dragonmaid. This time we actually want a Dragonmaid. Now you're gonna banish the Pisty, summon this, we're gonna start this Metal Dragon. And this can now bring back another Dragonmaid. And the advantage of this is that obviously you don't lose to spheres, but it's harder to set up. And now you can change over. And the thing you can now do is you can fuse these two to make Xiao. But then you also have a Spear Dragonmaid on field. So you can then change over in Graveyard, add this back to hand, add this back to hand. And it just gets you follow-up for free in hand. And then obviously you have the same advantage of, in the standby phase, Xiao is going to bring back Chamber. And then Chamber is going to search even more follow-up. Plus, this interrupts anything. It's also going to plus because it's going to summon from deck. And this is just a negate that's there because it's there because the deck has a negate. So yeah, that's the setup lines you can do in this. They're both kind of greedy. The 3 monster one is less greedy because you can still just make spheres if you get interrupted. But it's harder to set up. While the other one just requires Guard Dragon and any Dragonmaid normal summon. So it can even be like a Nurse or a Chamber, which is usually not a good card. Just normal summoning that just gets you to LP and that lets you play. Or against slower matchups especially, you don't go through those setups because they're too greedy, and hand traps stop them. You just turn this or this or this. Just turn your normal summon into a Pisty. Just turn a normal summon into a Pisty. I have it somewhere there. Turn a normal summon into a Pisty, and then hospitality it back, or tidying it back, or summon Red as Darkness Metal Dragon and then bring it back, and then just make Heretic Seal, set your back row, pass turn. The back row and Heretic Seal should be enough to stop the opponent, and Heretic Seal just goes +2 when it resolves, so you just get to play again. So yeah, that's Dragonmaid. It's a lot more powerful than its reputation, I think. It used to be really bad, but now it's gotten sufficient support that it's actually a really good deck. A lot of players just sleep on it because of like the waifu reputation and it being used. Like, it used to be a really bad deck, but every wave of support has made it better, and now it's actually a really respectable mid-rangey grindy deck. So yeah, that's the list, and also the stuff you can do with it.
Well, thank you very much. That was incredibly in-depth. Just quickly before we let you go, do you have any advice for anybody looking to play Remote Duel, or just a very quick thoughts on it?
I mean, just play. You'll be fine. That's really the main point of advice. I feel like a lot of players just don't want to pick it up, and I understand. Like, it feels overwhelming, like having to set up a webcam and like getting the field right. Like, it's really not a big deal. You take a webcam, you plug it in, and you point it at your playmat, and you'll figure it out. It's mostly just a matter of start playing, and you'll see how much fun it is. Like, I realized you can play like simulators, but it's just not the same thing as like physically holding a trading card. It's just not the same thing. Like, it's the same game, but it doesn't feel the same. So just try it. Just play Remote Duels. You'll be fine.
And then finally, do you have any shoutouts you'd like to give out?
Not really. Shout out to the judges, just in general. Judges in general. You're awesome. You're undervalued. I realize I'm patting myself on the back here, but judges in general are undervalued because you didn't notice them if everything goes well, and I think people only notice them if it goes poorly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if anything goes bad, everybody's immediately noticing the judge, but if the judge does his job well, you never notice him, or them, or her, or whoever. So, I think just shout at the judges in general. We're awesome, apparently.
Okay, well, well done, and I'm sure we will see you at some more Remote Duel events in the future.
Yeah, hopefully.